Welcome. Today I'm going to address the subject of the amateur versus the professional. Brian Robinson, in a comment down below in one of the other videos, asked me to address the issue of what is an amateur versus what is a professional. When I first read the question, my immediate response, and probably yours too, well, a professional makes a living and an amateur doesn't. An amateur does it for the love of it. The professional does it for money. Now, we can debate that. I'd like to debate that. But as I thought more about it, I realized that there's a difference between an amateur and a professional, in that a professional supposedly embraces professionalism. And it's really professionalism that I want to address today. What is the difference between an amateur and a professional? One criteria might be income. I don't think that's the primary criteria. I don't. I think there are plenty of amateurs out there that represent magic, that represent the art very well. I would call them professionals. On the other hand, there are many professionals out there, people that make their living in magic, that demean other people, that demean other performers, that do not represent the art well, and yet they make a living at it. So I'd like to address the idea of professionalism. Professionalism as an attitude, professionalism as an etiquette, professionalism as a manner of behavior. So if you ask me what is the difference between an amateur and a professional, I'm going to say it's a way of behaving. It's a way of conducting yourself. It's a deportment. It's a character. That to me is the primary difference between an amateur and a professional. Being a professional should mean more than making your living at a particular thing. It should carry a certain connotation, that you carry yourself in a certain way. I'm going to give you some guidelines, but before I give you those guidelines, let me just share one thing with you. My mentor, and you've heard me talk about him many times, my mentor was Denny Haney. And Denny used to say to me, the most important thing is that people like you. Now, if that's the most important thing, maybe we should spend our time reading Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People than reading magic books. Because if we can learn to win friends and influence people, we're going to be successful. We're going to be professional. But Denny's point is well taken. If you go and you do the best magic in the world, the finest sleight of hand, you are the most skilled artist, and yet your audience doesn't like you, they're not going to have you back. They're not going to refer you. There's going to be a limit to your success, even if you're a highly skilled performer. So I think there's a lot of truth in that. Now I have bullet points. I have lots of bullet points. I'm going to go through each one because I think each one is important. But each one contributes to your character. Each one contributes to your professionalism. Each one carries you a little closer to that golden goal of being liked by your audience. Treat everyone with respect and dignity. Hopefully you know what that means. Treat everyone with respect and dignity. I would suggest that you study etiquette. You don't study etiquette so that you can be a snob or you can be snooty. You study etiquette so that you don't offend somebody. People have a certain sensibility. When you sit down at a table, are you the first one to gobble down your food, or do you wait for everyone to be seated and everyone to start eating? That is an etiquette. And it makes you more likable when you're aware of things. It's not that you study etiquette so you know who's violating the rules. You study etiquette so that you don't violate the rules. Treat everyone with respect and dignity. Speak well rather than ill of other performers. When you go to a magic show, go with the intention of making that performer look good. Applaud at the right applaud cue. The people around you, if they interact with you and want to talk to you about the performer, speak well of the performer. When you demean another performer, you demean our entire craft. So I think it's very important that you speak well of other performers along the same line. And this, folks, I have done shows. I was performing on a full stage. And this is back when I worked with Jill. I was doing an illusion show. So I had 5 or 6 grand illusions set up. And I had other smaller props set up. And the way I did it was I set up half of my props on stage right, half of my props on stage left. Jill would bring a prop out. I would perform with it. She'd take the prop off the other way. She'd bring another prop out. That's kind of the way we worked. That's the way our blocking was set up. Every once in a while at a show, I'd have a performer come back and introduce himself and say, hey, I'm a magician. Can I hang out? You know, and I'd say, sure, you can hang out. Of course you can hang out. So I'd have another magician back there looking around, sometimes during the show, sometimes just before the show. But on this one occasion, this guy came back. I knew him. I knew who he was. I knew he wasn't giving me a line, but he said he's a performer. Can you look around? I said, sure, you can look around. Later when I was performing in the show, I realized that he had tampered with my props. You know, I mean, I got through it okay, but I knew he did it, and I could see him in the audience, and he was just delighted with himself that he had done that. You know, we have to support each other. And you know, if you go to the forums, and I'm not going to name the forums, but if you go to the forums, you will see people putting each other down. We don't need to do that. We should be lifting each other up, supporting each other. That's part of being a professional. You don't make somebody look bad to make yourself look good. That's not being a professional. That's being an amateur. Control your tongue and your temper. Do not cuss and do not yell. Control your tongue and your temper. Maintain a positive mental attitude. What that means, practically speaking, is don't complain. You're going to show up at a gig and you're going to ask the booking agent, what are the circumstances, who's in the audience, where's the performing area, I need at least 30 minutes to set up, I need this, I need that, let's get that set. You're going to show up at that gig and none of that stuff's going to be done. You're a professional. You work with the circumstance you're handed. Let me tell you a little story. So, as an HR professional, I'm required to attend human resource seminars. And so I go to these things 8, 9 times a year. Some of them are quite large. They are conventions where hundreds of people are gathered, and there are professional audio-visual people that are setting everything up and making sure the show runs smooth. Most of the time, we don't have that as performers, and the speakers don't have that. That's only at the big shows, okay, at the big conventions. Most of the time, you're going to a conference room in a large business, and you have one speaker, and that's it. I have seen professional speakers. These guys are making $1,500 a pop at least. Some of them are $3,000. Some of them are $10,000. Coming in and doing a 2-hour speech, okay? They come in with a zip drive. And I've seen them get angry and have meltdowns because a laptop isn't available to them and a projector is not available to them, and they melt down. When I show up at a gig, I have my sound system, I have my props, I have my tables, I have everything I need to do the show. If the booking agent doesn't have what I need, that's okay. I have what I need. So to me, I watch these people and I think, how are these guys making a living? You know? Never complain and have a can-do attitude. That's what it means to have a positive mental attitude. If you're asked to do something special, this past summer I'm doing some Zoom shows. I didn't get as many Zoom shows as I wanted. That's why I had to go back to work. But I'm doing some Zoom shows, and I'm discounting what I would normally charge because it's a Zoom show. But I have been asked to do, more often than not, I've been told, these are the special circumstances. This is why we're having the event, and we want you to design magic around the theme of the event, which means I'm doing custom magic for this event. And you know what? I did it. I did it without complaint because I'm a professional. Don't complain. Have a can-do attitude. Showing up for work regardless of the obstacles. One of the great stories, I think, in magic. You know, and you can, people either love Houdini or they hate Houdini. And there's a lot going on in that to unpack in that gentleman's life. I totally get it. But one of the things that I really respect in Houdini's example to the rest of us was his work ethic. The man would show up for work no matter what was going on. At the end of his life, now we can debate about this. Had he gone to the hospital, would he have lived? I mean, we can have that debate. But here's the thing. When Houdini had a show to do, he was very dedicated to doing that show. He had appendicitis. His temperature was somewhere around 103. But he walked out on that stage and he did that show because that's what his audience expected. That's professionalism. It's professionalism. You get there and do it. Cal Ripken used to say, 90% of success is showing up. How many people make excuses about not showing up to work? Show up. That's what it means to be a professional. Keep your word. And what I mean by that is establish a reputation for dependability. You don't need a contract to make you do what you say you're going to do. If you give your word, keep it. That's what it means to be a professional. Keep confidences. As you go about your business as a professional magician, you're going to be exposed to trade secrets. You might work for a corporation and they might disclose to you some things that are very important to them so that you can design a show to present at their trade show. That's a trade secret. You have a confidence. Likewise, if you're doing family entertainment, you're going into people's homes, you're interacting with people, you might see things, you might hear things. These are confidences. My mother used to say to me, if you can't say something good, say nothing at all. To me, that's what it means to be a professional. You speak well of others. You don't speak ill of others. You hear something that you shouldn't have heard, or maybe that you should have heard, but it's a confidence. Keep the confidence. Do not be a spreader of gossip. Apologize when you've made a mistake. Things go wrong. We live in a fallen world, right? Things go wrong. When things go wrong, apologize. Own it. Don't pass the buck. Own it. Apologize and do everything you can to make it right. Little story. I was a salesman. I was selling auto parts for an auto parts dealer here in Baltimore. My job was to go from garage to garage and try to convince the head mechanics there to use our products instead of someone else's. I was out in my car all day long driving from garage to garage. I stopped at a gas station to get gas. I was running late for an appointment. I drove out of the gas station. The nozzle was still attached to my car. It snapped off. Got down the road, realized I had done this, looked out, the nozzle was still hanging out of my gas tank. I drove back. I did not know what would happen. I thought, this could be very expensive. It didn't matter how expensive it was my mistake. So I walked into the garage, into the gas station. I asked for the manager or owner. He came out. It was a privately owned franchise. So he owned the place. I explained to him what happened. What he said to me kind of blew me away. He said, no one's ever come back. He said, people do this all the time. those gas nozzles are designed to shut off when it happens. I replace them. No one's ever brought this part back to me. And he explained how much the part was worth. He didn't charge me for the part. In fact, what he said to me was, you need gas, you come here, you have gas on the house. That's what he said to me, because the part was worth that much to him. Do the right thing. Always do the right thing. That's what it means to be a professional. Okay, I'm going to share something with you that I'm sure I'm going to get comments on, but I'm going to share it anyway. Keep your personal opinions and your political views to yourself. Ugh. I mean, we live in an environment today when we are more polarized than I have. I'm 60 years old. I've never seen polarization like I'm looking at it right now. Here's the problem. If you take as a performer now, not as I'm talking about as a professional performer. If you're going to take a position, chances are today you're going to alienate half of your audience. I want to be very careful about what I say and how I carry myself. And people can express their opinions. This is America. You can say whatever you want. What I'm suggesting is we want to appeal. We have a calling. Our calling is to entertain with the vehicle of magic. That's our focus, okay? It matters to me on a personal level. It matters to me who's in office and what they're doing in office. That matters to me, and I vote. I vote in every election. But I want to work for liberal Democrats, and I want to work for conservative Republicans. I don't want to alienate any camp. So I want to be very careful about the opinions I'm expressing, the political views I'm expressing. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm saying you should exercise an ounce of tact when you do. And understand that our opinions aren't gospel. People have different opinions. There are different viewpoints. We need to be tolerant and understanding of these things. To me, that's what it means to be a professional. Temperance. Arrive early, but not too early, and never arrive late. If your show starts at 3 o'clock, here's what I do. Okay, I'm going to give you my pitch. Show starts at 3. I'd like to show up at 2:30 if it's okay with you, because I need at least a half an hour to set up. So that's my pitch right off the bat. I want an extra half an hour. Now, if I say I'm going to be there at 2:30, I am not there at 2:35. I am not there at 2:15. I'm there at 2:30. You should show up on time when it's show time has come. 3 o'clock is there. I'm ready to go. If the host needs a delay, I'm okay with that. If the host wants me to start early, I'm okay with that. I was doing a show in Aberdeen. It was an outside show, and I was told to be, I was doing an illusion act at the time, so I had a lot to set up, and there were 3 or 4 acts ahead of me and 3 or 4 acts after me. I explained to the booking agent what the situation was, and I was told to get there before the first act so I could set up all that I needed to set up. So I get there, I can't remember the exact times, but let's say that I was going on at 3, but the show was starting at 1, so I got there at 12. Okay, I got there at 12. I set up my illusion show, off to the wings. First act came out, they did their thing. Second act came out, they did their thing. There was a Michael Jackson impersonator that was supposed to come on after me. And that person had not arrived. Oh, actually, he was supposed to be there before me. That's what it was. He was supposed to be there before me. He had not arrived. So my show time was at 3. He was supposed to be there at 2. I was set up at 12, right? So at 2 o'clock, I'm looking out at the audience, and they're chanting Michael, 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 and there's no Michael. So the organizer comes over to me and says, "Can you go out? Can you go out? It's 2 o'clock. I'm supposed to be there. Supposed to perform at 3. I got there at 12. Set up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go." So I said, "Sure, I can go out." So I'm out there working. I'm doing an hour, so I'm about 30 minutes into my act when Michael Jackson shows up. All of a sudden, the crowd starts going, "Michael, Michael, Michael." And I look over at the organizer, and he's going, "Get off the stage, right? Get off the stage." Well, here's the thing. I didn't make any less that day because I did 30 minutes instead of 60. I got the same fee. So I wrapped up my act. I got off the stage. Michael Jackson came out, and everybody screamed. And I'm thinking, I just did an illusion show with all these huge props. This guy comes out wearing one glove and walks backwards, and that's his act. so anyway, we work hard for our money, folks. Here's the other thing. Arrive prepared. I told you earlier about the speakers I've seen that come to the gig with a zip drive, and then they get angry when they don't have someone else's laptop and LCD projector to use. They're angry. You know how much space it takes to carry an LCD projector and a laptop with you? About this much space. About the space of a large briefcase. But they're not prepared. They show up with a zip drive. Now you might say, well, maybe they had the arrangement made that that equipment was going to be there for them. Maybe it was in their rider. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. But I have seen this over and over again. People showing up for a gig and they're not prepared to present at the gig. Now let's take the scenario where they show up at the gig and let's say they have their speaker with them. They have their AV equipment. They have everything they need, but something goes wrong and it's just not working. You still don't melt down, right? You still don't have your little fit. You go out and you do the best you can under the circumstances that you're dealt. That's what it means to be a professional. You arrive prepared. When I go to a gig, I always carry my Bose speaker. I have my sound system if I need it. I've been at gigs where they had a superior sound system. I plugged into it, I used it. I've been at gigs where the hall was very large and they had no sound system at all. My voice doesn't carry that well. I always carry a sound system with me. It's important to be heard and to be seen when you're performing. Take the attitude of a servant. Professionals take the attitude of a servant. You are there to serve your audience. Remember that. You are there to serve your audience. They do not serve you. Any way that you can to be of service, you should be. Hold the door for people. If you see that you've arrived at your show and people are struggling to set up seats, help them set up the seats. That's what it means to be a professional. Never interrupt someone when they're speaking. It's rude. It goes back to the etiquette I spoke about earlier. When someone's speaking, you listen, and you actively listen. Pay attention to what they're saying. Be able to restate it to them. It shows that you care. It shows that you respect them. Never interrupt. Likewise, never condescend. We have a lot of condescension in our culture these days. People looking down their nose at other people. People thinking that they are superior to other people. People thinking that they're more intellectual than other people. We have a lot of it in our culture. Don't you be one of them. Do not condescend. Be courteous and well-mannered. Say please and thank you. Use the word sir and the word ma'am. Say thank you often. Practice active listening. Do the right thing, even if it means you might lose money by doing the right thing. Always choose the right thing. Understand what your customer needs or wants and exceed those expectations. It's your job as a professional to learn what your customers' needs are and to make sure that when you deliver your product, you've exceeded those needs and expectations. That's what it means to be a professional. Dress for success. Let me explain what I mean by that. Your dress is part of your brand. How do you want people to perceive you? I'm not saying that you can't wear jeans to perform. I'm saying that you must understand that the way that you dress conveys something to your audience. You should be very deliberate in how you dress and how you want to be perceived, because you are defining your brand by what you put on your body. Dress for success. Social media. Let's talk about social media for a second. I mentioned earlier about politics. I am a political person. I have a very specific political ideology. I am also highly religious. I am deeply religious. I am a devoted religious person. When I was growing up, people used to say, don't talk about religion and politics, because they understood the divisive nature of those conversations. There are many different religions out there, and there are many people in our culture that don't hold to any religion, and they find religions offensive. And there are many different political ideologies out there. My job is to entertain them all, every one of them. I don't want to offend anyone. It's not that I'm sheepish about what I believe. It's not that I'm a coward. It's that I have a high calling here. My calling is to entertain. It's not to persuade people to believe my ideology. That's not my job. So I want to present my very best. And you need to be careful about what you're posting on social media. Once again, just as what you put on your body is part of your brand, what you post on your Facebook page is also part of your brand. That's going to be seen, that's going to be with you probably for the rest of your life. I think you should think very carefully about what you're posting in social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. It represents you, it represents your brand. You are establishing your brand when you post on Facebook. So think about that. My opinion, there are many great comics who have foul mouths. My opinion, blue material, sexual material, blue material, foul language has no place in my act. No place in my act. Zig Ziglar tells the story about an entertainer that was hired to speak at a convention, and the people that were booking him looked at his demo reel and said, well, you're using this language and it's offensive. And the comedian said, I can take it out. And the booking agent said, well, we want to hire someone who doesn't have to take it out. Don't be one of those people that has to back material out of your act. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. You don't need to. You're a magician. Your job is to entertain with wonder, to create wonder. You don't need blue material, folks. You don't. Never pass the buck. Never pass the buck. Own responsibility. Own responsibility for your life. Own responsibility for your act. When you're booked to go and entertain, own it. You're there to do a job. Make sure you do it. Take full responsibility. It's your job. That's what it means to be a professional. Never pass the buck. Give your very best at all times. Do whatever you have to do to make sure that at showtime you are delivering the very best you're capable of delivering. That's what it means to be a professional. Let me sum up. It's not about how much money you make. It's about how you behave. The original question was, what is the difference between an amateur and a professional? It was asked by Brian Robinson. Brian, it's not about how much money you make. It's about your deportment. It's not about your bank account. It's about your character. If you want to be a professional, understand what professionalism means and live up to it every day. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. Please comment down below. I know I've said a lot of things that are going to ruffle some feathers, and I want to hear about it. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, so please comment down below. Please subscribe. I appreciate your subscriptions. I appreciate your comments. Brian Robinson made a comment. That's why we're doing this. Please feel free to make requests and comments below. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.